Okay, so here we are going over the quiz that you just took. And the first question says, which of these, and now it's talking about these right here, right? Which of these is a factor of 81x squared minus 81? Now, something's a factor if it goes into it. Well, the best way to tell if it's a factor is to factor it completely. What number goes into both terms here? 9 does, but that's not the biggest number that does. What's the biggest number that goes into them? 81. See, 81 goes into itself here, and 81 goes into itself here, doesn't it? See how I have two terms? 81x squared is my first term, and 81 right here is my second term. 81 goes into both. Remember, when you factor out, you got to factor the biggest number that goes into both. So when I factor 81 out, it's like I'm dividing this term by 81, and I'm dividing this term by 81, and that leaves me with x squared minus 1, right? And now I need to factor this. Well, for you to factor it, you got to know what it is. What is x squared? It's a perfect square. What is 1? It's a perfect square, and I got a minus in the middle. That makes this whole thing circled in blue a difference of squares. So I'm going to write out 81, and then I'm going to split it in two binomials, because if it's a difference of squares, you can factor it into two binomials, and it'd be x plus 1 and x minus 1. So now let's go look at our factors. See if it'll let me. It won't let me. So if you look at our choices, up there, okay, does 81 go into it? Yeah, if you can factor it out, which I did right here, if you can factor it out, then it is a factor. Okay? Well, let me ask you this. Does 9 go into it? Yeah, because, look, if I can factor 81 out, every number that goes into 81 is also a factor of it. Well, 9 goes into 81, so it's a factor. Is x plus 2 a factor? X plus 2 is not a factor. Do I see it here, here, or here? It does not go into the original problem. What about x minus 1? Yeah, look, I can see it right here, can't I? It's a factor. What about x plus 1? Yeah, look, here it is right there, isn't it? Does that make sense? What about x squared? No. Now, I have an x squared right here, but I can't factor the x squared out, so it's not a factor of it. It's only a factor if it can be factored out. And so the ones that were 1, 2, 4, and 5, which is, it's not G, it's E. That's why the answer was E on that one. Okay, so here's number 2. And in the problem, I even circled for you the key word, prime, right? And I told you when I handed you the quiz, I said, be sure you read the questions very carefully, right? What number goes into all three terms on this problem? So you guys can see that 4 goes into all three terms, right? 4x squared is a term, 28x is a term, and 24 is a term. And 4 goes into all of them, so I'm going to factor 4 out. When I factor 4 out, remember, that's like I divide each term by 4, right? And so what do I get? X squared plus 7x plus 6, right? Because 4x squared divided by 4 is just x squared. 28x divided by 4 is just 7x. And 24 divided by 4 is just 6, isn't it? And now I need to factor what's inside the parentheses here. But let's stop for just a second. Some of you picked B on this, didn't you? You said 4 was a factor of it. Is 4 a factor? Say yes. 4 is a factor, but why is B not the answer? Yep. Right, because they asked for the prime factor. Well, 4 is not prime. 4 is not a prime number. So let's keep factoring. 4 times, and what's inside the parentheses here factors to be x plus 6 and x plus 1. So now let's list all the prime factors. 2 is a prime factor, right? Because 2 goes into 4, doesn't it? x plus 6 is a prime factor, and x plus 1 is a prime factor. These are all the prime factors, and I probably should list 1 as well. Okay? Those are all the prime factors. Okay? Now, which one's up there? Well, you can see A is our answer, isn't it? Right? Because x plus 1 goes into it right here, and x plus 1 is prime. The reason x plus 1 is prime is because nothing can be factored out of it. Now, what if I took this 4 and I distributed it here and here? What would I get? I'd get 4x plus 4, which is right here, right? But what's the problem with 4x plus 4? It's not prime. All right, this one had the highest percentage of students answering correctly. It says in the problem, which of the following can be factored into two binomials? Okay. Now, if you look, let's look at A. What are my factors of 5? 1 times 5. Is there any way I can add or subtract 1 times 5 and get 3? So this one is not factorable. So it's not the answer, because they want to know the one that you can factor into two binomials. Look at B. A squared is a perfect square, Cherry. 25 is a perfect square. But in the middle, what do I have? A plus sign. So this is not factorable. Okay. Look at C. What are my factors of 1? 1 times 1. Is there any way I can add or subtract these to get 1 here in the middle? So this is not factorable. What are my factors of 6? 1 times 6. And can I add 6 and 1 to get 7? So that one factors to be x plus 6 times x plus 1. So this D right here factors into two binomials, doesn't it? So D is your answer.